becomes, I think, if basically, so sexuality I don't think is covered in a lot of the hate speech currently in our country, but like certain things are hate speech. Like if you're talking about issues of race, I believe that can be termed hate speech. I don't know. I have to do more research on hate speech.
I know it's not a law. I know you can't be arrested if you're in a hate group. You know, like, I mean, you can't be arrested if you're into the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, I'll do more research on the hate speech aspect. Yeah, we'll have to check into that. Okay. Oh yeah, real quick, just to back that up, very important things here. In January of 2009, 2 years ago, San Francisco Catholic Charities had to stop providing adoption service because they won't allow homosexual couples to adopt. So it was already being forced upon a religious institution to accept this certain understanding of what was allowed and what wasn't allowed with homosexuality. The same thing happened 3 years earlier in Boston. Boston Catholic Charities had to stop adoption service for the same reason. And the Catholic Church is one of the major adoption agencies. On your feet. Come on. Back. Just bring your notebook with you. Bring your notebook with you. Friendship, common objections now. We're going to look at actually some objections to keeping marriage the way that it is. Whoops. Real quickly too, I forgot to mention this really quick. In the talk that the guy was giving at the end, he said freedom to speech, freedom of religion. Are those in the Constitution?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Is freedom to marry whoever I want in the Constitution? So I think, again, that was something that I thought was pretty low, right? To say freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to marry. Like, whoa, that's
not in there.
Okay. But anyway, common objections. One objection that you'll hear, and these are on your sheets, so make sure you're following along. If you got something that you want the rest of the group to talk about, please raise your hand and we'll get to it. I don't want a lot of just you talking to whoever you want to talk to. Okay? All right. One objection to keeping marriage between a man and a woman is that friendship is valuable to preserve. Look, we need to have homosexual marriage because friendship is an important thing and the state needs to allow friendship to take place. And what I think we would say in response to that is friendship is great. Yes, I agree. Don't call it marriage. Okay? The whole issue of justifying anything that I want or any way that I want by making it marriage is kind of silly. Okay? Yes?
Would the church have a problem with, instead of marriage, having union?
I think the state cannot, we're going to get there, but I think the state cannot have a problem with there being civil unions. But we'll get to that civil union question in a minute. But I think at least initially, yes, there is no initial argument that the state could put up there really against having a type of a civil union where you're allowed to pass on, or you and your partner can make medical decisions for each other or whatever instead of the family, that kind of stuff.
That's the only issue. I mean, really, because like homosexual couples don't get the benefits of health care.
Let's go there. Let's go there right now. How about that? We'll fast forward to that. I know you can't read it. I'm reading it out loud. It's also on your handout. I'm going to skip through some of it and go fast. And it's on the mic. So take Joe and Jim. They live together, support each other, share domestic responsibilities, have no dependents, but because Joe knows and trusts Jim more than anyone else, he would like Jim to be the one to visit him in the hospital if he is ill, give directives for his care if he is unconscious, inherit his assets if he dies first, and so on. And it goes for Jim as well. So far, you may be assuming that Joe and Jim have a sexual relationship, but does it matter? What if they are bachelor brothers? What if they are best friends who never stopped rooming together after college or who reunited after being widowed? Is there any reason that the benefits they receive should depend on whether their relationship is or even could be romantic? And I think this is the great point right here at the end. Wouldn't it be patently unjust if the state withheld benefits from them on the sole ground that they were not having sex? Do you see the point that he's making? If you're going to say, okay, we're going to have civil unions where that way whoever, if you are a homosexual person and you want to make sure that the other person can make decisions for you and pass their will on to you and so on and so forth, it would be odd then to say that we can't have that if they're not having sex. Okay?
That makes sense.
So then it becomes, though, then what you would take this is to say, you either have to set up a way for anybody to give anybody else what is theirs and make decisions for them, or you don't give that to anybody unless they're married. You have to go one way or the other. But to say, like, let's say my brother moves in with me, my mom and dad were to pass away or something, my brother in high school moves in with me, and whatever, and I want to make sure that he gets the things that I have in case I die, and I make decisions for him and not somebody else, all those things. It would be crazy to say, well, sorry, you can't because you're not a homosexual couple. Right?
Yes.
So then the issue becomes, well, then why do we have any laws saying... Right.
Why would you marry your brother?
I wouldn't marry my brother.
Well, I guess you can make the same argument for heterosexuals because the church doesn't see it as a marriage unless there is sex in it. So if your best friend is someone of the opposite sex.
Right, but now we're looking at from a civil level.
Right,
So,
but I mean, still, even I guess they can. I mean, if they're not married, you can't will, either for heterosexual. You know what I mean? But I guess if you're looking at it from civil aspect, they can still marry and never have sex, and they can still get willed. You know what I mean?
yes,
Yeah, so,
yes, yep. Okay, so I think what the state would say is, look, let's either make all relationships an option for a civil union where you can do all of this stuff, or only give certain benefits to people who are actually married. Why might the state actually see the benefit of giving these things to people who are married? Why would the state have a vested interest in encouraging marriage? Anybody? This is a kind of a key point. Why would the state give a rip about marriage? We've already talked about it a couple times, but to continue this society to continue itself on. Okay? All right. Let's see. This is an important one. Important. Interracial marriage. Interracial marriage and the comparison. Okay? People will say that this argument about homosexual marriage is just like when they banned interracial marriage back in whenever, okay, the old days, when it was not allowed for an African American person and a white person to come together in marriage in a lot of states. That was a law, right? So the argument is, look, states, they had a faulty understanding of things. They kept people apart in their marriage laws, just like we do now with homosexual people. We don't understand it. We're small-minded. We're bigoted, whatever. We don't have a conception of it. And we're keeping people from marriage. Do you guys see the comparison that people make there? Does that make sense?
It goes both ways for who? I mean, like, I can see what your argument.
Well, yeah. But let's get there for a second. What was you saying? What were you saying, Kenny?
It's not the same.
What's not the same?
Like interracial marriage and gay marriage.
Okay. Why not?
Because, like, with races, it's different. Like, I can't explain. You cannot compare that at all.
I don't think so either, and we're going to get into that. But I thought yeah, Chris.
I don't know, Kenny. I just went way off track. I forget now.
Okay. Here's the difference. Then they were still understanding marriage, even though they were being racist. They still had the idea that marriage is between a man and a woman and has been so for all time. They just didn't want people to participate in that. They were keeping men and women apart who may have wanted to marry one another, but they still had the core understanding of what a marriage is. They were just being racist about who could participate. This issue changes what has always been understood to be marriage in the first place.
With our family.
But not interracial. Interracial marriage does not change the definition of what marriage is. This changes the very understanding of what marriage is in the first place. So that's the difference, I think, that we need to make sure we can understand. I'm going to ask you on your test about interracial marriage and the comparison and why people in the camp, this camp at least, see the difference.
When the discriminating against interracial marriage was going on, what did the church have to say? Like, was there any important movements the church was promoting?
That's a good question, to be honest. I think that it's because the issue there is there are some societies that were dealing with that at that time. There are other societies who still were very much countries and so forth that probably weren't struggling with that. So a lot of times, even though it's maybe a key issue for our country, the church might not, from the Vatican at least, have a document on interracial marriage. I think what you would have to go back to look for the church's response would be statements by bishops and so forth during that time. And I would imagine they were taking the lead on the interracial marriage issue. The Catholic priests were there alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, Catholics were really at the forefront of the whole race issue in the first place. And so I would imagine then that with the interracial marriage, it was no different, although I've never done any research to kind of look at the churches. Yes?
I want to make a comment.
Sure.
Is that when people agree, like people are like happy with the church, when the church's opinion is for something that everyone likes, like, you know, the racial thing.
Right.
But I mean, as soon as like the church disagrees, then everyone's like against the church.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm really confused. It's like
Well, it's been an uphill battle, I would say, from the beginning, since 33 AD. And Jesus got crucified too. So even going back further, it's been an uphill battle, and we were never promised that we were going to win. But you keep kind of talking about what the truth is. And I mean, I think sometimes that people are like, hey, great, the church, that's awesome. But then other times they're not. Yeah.
Okay, you know how we were talking earlier, how society, I guess, is better off if a bad action ever happened, more so than any positive benefit that it may have resulted in.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, would society have been better off if Jesus never did get crucified then? Because, I mean, that was a positive coming from a negative, you know what I mean? So,
would society be better off if Jesus had never been crucified? That's a good question.
yeah, because, I mean, you know, from that argument, the answer would be yes, but I don't know. It's kind of, it's different circumstances, but...
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that you could still say, here's what I guess maybe the best thing to say to that, and this was kind of, I preached about this not too long ago. Had Jesus been aborted, we would still be saved.
No.
Mm-hmm. If Jesus had gotten run over by a donkey when he was 3 years old, or if Herod's troops had found Jesus, little baby infant Jesus, when he was 4 months old and killed him then and there, we would be saved because the Son of God came and took flesh and died. He goes to hell, free of sin, breaks open the doors of hell for people to then come back into heaven with him. Then, therefore, we ask the question, what is this for? What is this for? This is then, the rest of his life is teaching us and bringing us along, and then also then ultimately that is showing us how to live. He's saying, this is, if you want to know the best way to live, this is it. You give of yourself until death, like I did, and you suffer and you're humble. So, we would be then, he could still suffer, I guess, for us in the opposition of sin, and we would still learn our lesson. So I guess we could say that we wouldn't, but yeah, no, I think that's a good question. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts, concerns? All right, we're moving. Objection 3, it is a matter of equality. Equality is when you treat like cases as like. This is not an issue of like cases. Okay? Fairness only involves that you treat the same cases the same way. All right? Up until the point, though, that they become different cases, these are not equal cases. Some of them are men wanting to get married or women wanting to get married, and then there are other cases where men and women want to get married. I have a right to marry whomever I wish. This is an absolute mockery of language. Where is this written? What is marriage? We've totally then, we don't even have an idea of what marriage means when we're saying that. If I'm already married, does the state let you marry someone else? No. So you don't have the right to marry whomever you wish, because I could already be married and then I'm not allowed to get married again. So I'm a married person. I can't marry whomever I wish unless I've done what? Get a divorce. Okay? I get a divorce. Well, the annulment's from the church. We're talking state level here. I don't have the right to marry whomever I wish. Okay? That's insane. And that's not true. So to say that is completely just trying to get people fired up. This is an issue of justice. We hear that. What is justice? Okay, justice is, from last semester, giving a person what they are due. All right, well, where does it say that someone is due the right to marry someone of the same sex? That's not anywhere. Objection 4, people are infertile. This is another important one that I'm going to ask you on your test. So make sure that if you don't understand it, that you're asking questions on this. Okay? People are infertile. Some people are infertile, right? So should they not get married? If the whole idea is perpetuating our society and trying to bring about children for the next generation, well, some people can't have kids. Okay? Yes. Yep. The church says that. But oftentimes those who are deemed infertile turn out to not be. So that's one objection. Elijah, you with us? Okay. Baseball teams, first of all, if you think about this analogy too, a baseball team has its structure largely based around its orientation to winning. If I'm on any sports team, basically, but this sports team, we're gathering together this team with the hope of trying to win. Okay? If the team never wins, it is still a team. If the husband and wife never have a child, they're still a husband and wife. And not only that, that team is valuable to one another and to society. Okay? That team is still valuable to one another and to society. If a team is winless in the Major League Baseball or NBA or the NFL, you probably would only, maybe the only chance where you would really have a winless team would perhaps be in the NFL. I could see a team going winless. Did we have one? Detroit went winless, right? They went 0-16, I think.
They still garbage.
Here's the thing, though. So you say, well, good. Look, you've got a winless team, right? Just like you got parents who can't conceive. That winless team still performs a service for the NFL. If you just said, well, that team hasn't won any games, we're not going to broadcast their games anymore, the Packers still play the Lions on Thanksgiving Day, and that still brings a lot of money. Shh. Do you see what I'm saying? Winless teams still help the league and are still necessary for the league. Do you guys get that? Does that make sense? Winless teams are still necessary for the league, the sports league, even if they're not winning. It also helps the team, the people that are on the team. So to say, that's the same kind of thing. It helps society to see good marriages, even if they're not having children. In the same way, it can if homosexuality is what it is, it can also be something that brings us down or brings us to a different understanding, an unhealthy understanding. You watch it on TV all the time, it starts to change your understanding of what exactly is going on. Where you see it in the movies all the time. That affects us. It affects and it helps society, though, to see good people have strong marriages, even if they're not having kids. Okay? So that would be basically what we would say to that. There was this was a thing put together by a professor named Robert George and some other colleagues of his about marriage from a state perspective, not a Catholic perspective. Now, let's look at gay adoption here really quickly. What's that? You guys are fighting hard. You guys are doing good. I know. It's spring break, man. It's spring break coming up. You guys can fight.
Yeah, we fight big.
Patty.
I know you.
I feel you, boy. I feel you, well.
That's right.
We watched the clip edge, didn't we?
We did. Okay. Real quick, before you read that, don't read that yet. Don't read it yet with your eyes. Don't read it. Look up here first, please. One of the arguments, first of all, that we need to at least be made aware of is this. This is, in the 1980s, McWhorter and Madison, two social scientists, they were gay themselves and were a couple. Okay? They interviewed 156 gay couples, and 60% of those couples began their relationship, entered into their relationship, thinking it would be monogamous. Only that person and I will now have sex together. The rest of it will be closed. Okay? No one else will be involved. Not one couple stayed sexually exclusive longer than 5 years. Okay?
You called it.
The argument, though, is deeper than that. It's not just that, look, homosexual people that are acting on it tend to act up or act out outside of their... This is important. If there is sex going on, it is an unhealthy atmosphere. You don't need to change the language. You don't need to use the language of sin in order to say, look, the state should not be putting adopted children with couples who are acting on their homosexual attractions. You don't need sin for that because our society already does that. Our society already does not put people into situations where there is sex that's going on which the society deems to be not good. If there's prostitution going on in a house, we would pull the child out of that environment as a Child Protective Services. If porn was being filmed in a home, we would pull the child out of that environment. If sex was occurring in the home, which was bondage or S&M type of sexuality, the CPS would still pull the child out of that environment.
Teachers, students,
Go ahead.
a moment of your time.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your cooperation in expediting the fire drill as quickly as possible.
Even if they were adopted children in a place where that was going on, then CPS would come back in and pull them out. And probably even if it was their own children, they would probably go in and pull those kids out.
Be as close to the
What's that?
stairs as possible away from the door.
That would be like everybody. So what I'm saying is,
On a fire,
a lot of people say, how come I can't have kids in my house if I'm a homosexual couple? Why can't I adopt children?
close.
But there's lots of times...
Book bags or golf clubs in front of those doors
It's all right, Bob. That's not
that are responsible for keeping fire.
There are a lot of things, a lot of times...
When the bell rings.
We're gonna say right here.
Your homework is...
Part of the building.
He hasn't stopped talking, so go ahead.
Those book bags and golf
Does anybody not know what to do with their book bags yet?
I know.
They are 2-hour rated doors. We make sure that we try to take care of that.
2-hour rated door.
Teachers, I'd like to remind you to make sure you have your rosters and take attendance at all times. If you have any problems that happened today, please email me and let me know. Thank you.
This is your homework summary. This is a blog post of mine about the kids not being all right.
Within 2 weeks, they have a son and a girl.
Yes.
Back on the